All right, and welcome into the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. The 2026 NFL Draft is in the rear view. Dynasty rookie drafts are already underway, so we're going to get you up to speed with all the shifting and the shaking with our updated mock draft for 12-team SUPERFLEX leagues. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock. And boys, I've already gotten my brother to threaten to quit our home league after I allegedly used insider information, traded up, take Ty Simpson in front of him earlier today. So that's just what we do at IBT, though. We are gamers. And once again, I'm joined by a couple of them, including a man who knows a thing or two about sibling rivalries. He's Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Steven, how are you? And have you lost any friends or family so far this fantasy football season?
No, not yet. I'm finding out I have sibling rivalry. I guess that's I learn a lot about myself on this show, frequently in these introductions, but like, what insider trading did you get accused of having? Like,
we were at his diaper party, right? And he told me, hey, I'm at 7. I'm probably going to take Ty. And I didn't ask him. He's just like, yeah, I think I'm going to take Ty Simpson. What do you think of the draft this year? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I want Ty Simpson too, probably, like, honestly, but I'm hoping Fernando comes to 3. He didn't come to 3. So then I had to pivot and go Carnell Tate at 3. And so he did kind of tell me he was taking him, but I told, like, I've been at Ty Simpson 105 the whole year. So it wasn't like a shocker to anyone that I made this deal other than him.
So he feels like he told you in confidence that he was going to go get Ty Simpson, and you used that against him.
Yes, and traded up one pick ahead of him. Yes.
That sounds like he shouldn't talk so much.
I mean, it was unsolicited, right? Like, I didn't say who are you going to take.
Even if it is, I don't trust my friends like that in rookie drafts. I don't tell them what's going on. Like, when people, like, when you're trying to make a trade, they're like, oh, well, who are you going to take there? It does not matter who I'm going to take there.
Yeah.
All you get to know is that I want it because there's someone there that I want.
That's what we do, man. We're gamers. Like, I'm sorry about it. You know, we can be friends the next day. It's just, hey,
we're friends after the football season.
Yeah, when the draft is on, the lights are the brightest, and I don't really care what happens outside of that. And back with us also today is the judge, the jury, and the executioner of this particular program. He's a big business, a light ranching son of a gun. He's Eric Romoff. Tex, how are you? And do you think the day my brother undoubtedly told me he wanted to take Ty Simpson at that pick and then jumping him was that a mistake on his end? Was it wrongfully so on my end? What's your overall deciding factor on this, sir?
I'm glad that I get to make a judgment on this because I have many, many thoughts. First, your action in and of itself, play on. Totally fair play. If someone gives you information and you're absolutely free to use that to your liking, right? We are playing a game of limited information. So if you get a little bit more, you can use it to your advantage. God bless you. I think, however, because we all know what Ty Simpson is likely to be in this league, I think you got. I think your brother is playing 4D chess. I think that he baited you into wasting that pick on Ty Simpson so that he could get whomever he wanted to.
Jadarian Price is who
did he go out and take? Jadarian Price. Would much rather have
Jadarian Price.
Oh, wow. Okay. I understand. He was desperate for a quarterback, though, because he only had his only QBs on the roster right now, I think, is like Kirk Cousins. So he's hurting a little bit. He took over the orphan a few years back. So I understand. And I do feel bad. I even told him afterwards, like, hey, if you give me Price and something small, like I'll give you him just to be nice. And he didn't really want to talk about it at that point. So I'm like, all right, whatever.
You completely got.
Okay. All right.
Ty Simpson doesn't help the quarterback situation this year.
Yeah, it wouldn't help his, but it'd give him at least, some foundation for the future. I'm good this year, at least. I got 2 quarterbacks, but I just really don't.
18 of them coming out next year. Just tell me.
Yeah. So exactly. So guys, as we mentioned, 12-team rookie draft coming everyone's way. We're gonna go 3 rounds deep, sorting out the fallout of this draft. Definitely a weird draft. If you want to hear more about it from a redraft perspective, we did a video, fallers and risers from the draft. We talked about veterans. We talked about rookies in that last week. So go ahead and check that out right above here right now. And then also a quick reminder that the easiest way to support the program is to make sure you guys are subscribed to the IBT podcast sub channel. And also please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. We also have the main channel as well with IBT where all of our content is connected, from Popcorn Root Beer, all the stuff Steve's doing over there, from the Back Road, me and Elliot, Chris Colicchio over there, and then, of course, the 19th hole with Jake Keith. and Mike doing a great job over there. So all that content still on the IBT main YouTube channel. But if you want one of these particular shows, we have some bonus content coming out just on these channels. So make sure you check that out. And guys, let's go ahead before we lose any of our viewers, much like I lost my brother the other day. Let's go ahead and fire things up here with a little front and center and get this mock draft underway.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place you can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
Front and center, we're getting rookie draft season underway with a fresh mock draft. And at the 101, I'm going to go with Fernando, who was already my 101 before the draft, right? I think Mendoza falls into a really good spot with the Raiders. They got Clint Kubiak now on the sticks. And I would have loved another pass catcher, I think, for Mendoza. Surratt was sitting there in the 4th round where I'm just like, come on, pull the trigger. So that would have been awesome. But aside from that, like, he still has arguably the best tight end in the league. Overall, like, an improved offensive line, a pretty lit backfield, Mike Washington joining the fold as well. So even in a 2027 class, it's going to be awesome, particularly at the quarterback position, working actually on a 2027 mock draft right now for the Tailgate YouTube channel over at the Fantasy Pros company. And looking for right now, like, I mean, we're talking 6-7 quarterbacks potentially in this first round next year, maybe even a couple day twos that are nice. So for me, though, like, I think his accuracy is really what sets him apart, even from some of those prospects, right? 68.5% career completion percentage, top 15 all time. So it's something you don't come across too often. I think it's worth the 101. And that'll put you up now, I believe, Eric, with the 102.
Yeah, 102 is going to be Jeremiyah Love. Not super thrilled about the landing spot, right? Of the teams rumored to be taking him, probably the Cardinals would be the last among them if I had my choice. But even with that being the case, even though the fact he's walking into a murkier timeshare situation than he might otherwise, he's still far and away the most talented running back in this year's class. And you can make a very defendable case for him to be the 2nd overall pick, the first running back off the board. This is a Cardinals team that should rely heavily on him for as long as they can try to stay competitive in games when the script flips and they have to play catch up. It's a very capable pass catcher out of the backfield, shades of Breece Hall as an archetype, right? So I think the floor is pretty high for him still, and high enough to justify 102, but the ceiling is probably a little capped until some of those running mates get out of the way in Arizona.
It's funny, Eric, because you and I think we're definitely Mendoza over Love initially before the draft too. And that was a hot take. Like, we got buried in some YouTube comments, both here at the IBT podcast and over at Fantasy Pros as well. So it's like now starting to be, I'd say, pretty 50-50 what you're seeing across some of these mocks. I'm still seeing a lot of Love. Steve, are you still Love over Mendoza right now?
I am. I'm not a Mendoza guy.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. You hate nerdy kids. It's cool.
I do not hate nerdy kids. I am in a very serious relationship with one.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair. Go ahead and bring us into the 103, Steve. Who do you have here?
Yeah, this is the last of like the lockdown picks. The top 3 are essentially like in some form, way, shape, or form, like locks, and that's Carnell Tate. It's the wide receiver one in this class went the 4th overall pick to the Tennessee Titans, who are desperate for a number 1 receiver to make sure that they don't bust out on Cam Ward. And I like that he's paired up with Cam Ward, because one thing Carnell Tate's very good at is contested catches and using that big body to kind of get his way.
Good point. Yeah.
And Cam Ward is kind of a, I don't know, F it, someone's down there kind of
quarterback.
Yeah. So like, I'm really excited about some of the plays that we're going to see out of Carnell Tate. I think even right away as a rookie, we could see some of those shades of Emeka Egbuka early with Tate, where Cam Ward's like, you know what? I'm just going to, there's one-on-one coverage. I got the arm. He's got the legs. Let's go make it happen.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's going to be really fun. I have Tate in a couple places already. And look, man, you have Calvin Ridley, who I think we can all say has seen better days ahead. you do have Wan'Dale Robinson who's going to eat into some of the target volume. But as you mentioned, Steve, like that's not really what we're going to expect from Tate. I mean, he's going to be he's more in that T Higgins mesh where he's going to have a high yards per reception, a high ADOT, and a lot of touchdowns, right? He might not have a million targets. And like, Eric, where do you think you come down on Tate for targets next year as a rookie? Is there a specific number with Wan'Dale coming over with Dable in tow?
No, it's really hard to clock specifically the number of targets, right? Because there are just so many new components and unknown variables about this offense overall. What I would feel comfortable projecting is more of like a target share type number where I think he'll pretty safely be into the high teens, even flirt with like 20%, maybe a little bit higher, right? But I don't know if we're going to see Dayball want to come out here and rip, 45 pass attempts per game, or if they're going to go a little bit heavier on the ground game,
But there's a ton of garbage time, right?
Like their defense isn't very good. I think one thing Dable does like to do, and I think could actually spell success for Tate in terms of both PPR and then target share just in general, is that he loves those tunnel screens. He loves to bring his number one, like bring them in, run the line out there, get him going. Might be a good way to kind of move this offense. I do worry that this is going to be a bit more run heavy than we want it to be, where they try to protect that defense by having the run game be a very heavy component. They did just draft Nick Singleton to add to Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So like we really have like a lot of mouths to feed on this offense, even though Tate is the wide receiver one by far. It is Wan'Dale, it is Calvin Ridley, and then those three running backs. So it could get a little murky.
Little Ellick, and you can have worse 4s and 5s than Ellick and Chimry, right, as well. So
yeah, sure.
I actually did just have to drop Chimry DK in a league, but it was a place where I had I drafted Carnell Tate, so I was like, I just don't have the room to keep DK rolling. I'm going to go with the 104 here. Jordyn Tyson, wide receiver for the Saints, top 10 draft capital to the same head coach that revived the careers of Keenan Allen, Chris Olave, and also really, started the dawn of CeeDee Lamb's arc in the NFL, right? So there's just a lot to like here with Jordyn Tyson. He was always like, no bones about it. Tyson was my wide receiver one if there were no injuries, but because of that factored in, like, I think his ceiling is actually, even as a rookie, maybe higher than what we're going to see out of Carnell Tate. But 6'1", 203, and like still everything we heard from the pro day was really, really good. We need to get to see him out in Indianapolis this season, but this is a guy who I think is going to come in, and he's done it every which of the way, man. I think he's the best true technician in his class. My only regret with Jordyn Tyson is he opened up and he was like plus 150, plus 175 to be the second wide receiver off the board. And then we heard all the noise that he was falling down draft boards maybe 2 or 3 weeks out. And I was like, I'm not buying it, but I never bought in until it was too juicy the other way that I never got to bet on him at all for the draft. But yeah, Jordyn Tyson here at the 104. All right, next up, we got Eric coming in with the 105.
Yeah, I'll take who I have as my wide receiver 2 in this year's class, and that's Makai Lemon. Absolute slot monster, just mauls people in the zone. He's great at finding the soft spot. When he does, he can generate a ton of yards after the catch. 21 forced missed tackles last year. That was the third most in all of college football. So now, we're presumably looking at a world where A.J. Brown is out to the door in the Philadelphia passing game that very, very likely moves the Slim Reaper out to the outside and gives clear runway for Makai Lemon to own the middle part of the field. The tricky part with that is that the part of the field that Jalen Hurts historically doesn't like to look at all that often, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of proof positive, as well as one of their future picks that I'm sure that we will discuss, that Mannion's going to come in as the offensive coordinator and really make an earnest effort to try to do more under center work, to try to get the ball out quickly to the guys that are, streaking across the middle and work the intermediate part of the fields. As long as that proof of concept looks to take root, then Makai Lemon is a perfect fit for what Mannion is trying to do and what the Eagles will try to do this year. If not, I mean, he's got decent enough chops on the outside to where they can, move him out there and, leverage that flexibility. But, if the theory of the crime for Sean Mannion is one that holds up to be true. It could be absolutely wheels up for Makai Lemon as soon as this year.
I worry a little bit that there might be a lot of 12-man personnel here, just because that's kind of Mannion's game. There's a lot of, under center play action type of passing. So,
Sure.
do you think, Eric, that Lemon will play in 2 wide receiver sets over Wicks right away, or do you think he maybe has to work his way into that?
I think he has the skill set to fairly readily win that job, right?
Okay.
If there are some stumbles over the course of camp, right? He gets the drops. He's not learning the playbook as well as quickly as you would like. He is not in the right spot on the field, whatever. Things like that are really hard to project, I think, are the things that would potentially prevent him from doing that. But as long as he performs in a way that aligns with what he's shown us thus far in his career, I think he starts week 1 in 2 wide receiver sets.
Steve, you're up with the 106 with a player who is definitely my biggest riser since the NFL draft.
Yeah, I'm going to go with running back Jadarian Price. He wound up in Seattle. Shout out our boy Jake Perry. He nailed that, much to the chagrin of a lot of naysayers on the show. So they can all suck it. Because every now and then we get it right.
Hey, we appreciate the haters too. They still count as a view and a subscription.
That's
so
fine.
we appreciate you haters. Keep weighing in.
They can have thick skin. I think Jadarian Price is a solid runner. I don't know if he's like an elite talent overall, but he fell into a pretty elite situation where he's kind of just the de facto number 1 because Zach Charbonnet is injured. There's not a lot on that roster other than him. I've been watching clips from camp of him doing passing work. He looks, I wouldn't say he's like a supernatural pass catcher, but he definitely has some hands. I think he had like 1 drop last practice, but other than that, he's been doing pretty well. Crisp in and out of his cuts, and I think he's a home run hitting kind of guy. I mean, he was a kick returner in college. That's going to be what you're looking for out of him. Is he's kind of like Kenneth Walker, where there'll be, I think, a lot of negative plays. He'll go like 1, 0, -1, 40, and that'll be what you get. And it's going to be exciting and frustrating all at the same time. But situation and talent equals 106, apparently, for Jadarian Price. And I'm thrilled to get him at this spot.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there, Steve. I think it's a really good pick, man, because and that's like my evaluation too, is like you couldn't have found a better clone for Kenneth Walker, right, than Jadarian Price.
They do a lot of the same thing. Is they get to the line of scrimmage and they kind of look left and right rather than forward. They kind of look like, how can I run away?
But when they go. They
get lateral way too often, but it can be fun.
All right, and next I'm gonna go with the man that my brother hates me over here is Ty Simpson, boys, because look, I said kind of coming into this process, and this is another area of regret, is my first mock draft, I had Ty Simpson going to the Rams. I had him going at 29, right? They trade that pick away. I think, maybe they're not going to go quarterback. Well, they went quarterback here, folks, and you can't get a better journey here from going from sweet home Alabama over to the West Coast with Sean McVay, dude. And he definitely likes him a lot more than he let on. I think he was trying to be courteous to Matthew Stafford. They've definitely talked more than it was initially let on to. But this is a guy in Ty Simpson, man. He had to put up with Ryan Grubb's offense, which I'm kind of thinking that Ryan Grubb actually is maybe a fraud after that great season in Washington. And I've been the biggest Grubb defender for years. Yeah. But I feel like that season in Washington with Penix and every Rome and Kentre Miller, that was a great year. But at this, I guess it was not Kentre Miller, he's TCU, but just a mid running backs at best. But it was just a great year. But I think he really had to struggle, man, at times, because not only was he sick, not only was he hurt, but also he had one of the worst running games in the country. Jam Miller did absolutely nothing when he did come back from injury. Then he ends up getting that concussion. And dude, to me, Ty Simpson has always been, for me, what is in between the helmet, right? What is in between the eyes? And this guy, I think he is going to download Sean McVay's playbook better than most. And if you're making this pick, you might have to, sit with the fact he might not play for 2 years. But there's always a chance Matthew Stafford gets hurt. And Matthew Stafford's been pretty healthy the last couple of years, and I'm not wish-casting injury, but anything could always happen. We know how that back was going into last season. So there's a chance you see Ty Simpson sooner rather than later. But either way, I'm willing to take the gamble at 107 in a quarterback class where there's not a lot to like. I just want to get ahead of it. I know we'll have some more good quarterbacks next year. We'll probably, most of the first half in Superflex leagues for rookies will be quarterbacks. So I'm going to go ahead and, start resetting that clock right now with my dynasty teams. And now we're going to go with Eric with the 108.
Yeah, 108's taking the first tight end off the board, and that is Kenyon Sadiq, the first round acquisition by the New York Jets. Just an absolute athletic freak of nature, right? Like if you track and model his athleticism and what he can do on the field as a pass catcher after the catch, it pins to some of the best like Pro Bowl style, all pro style tight ends that we've seen in recent memory. But then you look at him try to block and it gets a little bit shakier, right? So this is the open question, right? Can he just like be enough of can he just be competent enough to not be a liability out there as a blocker? And if so, I think he's going to be on the field a ton in a Frank Reich offense that presumably, if past his prologue, is going to feature the tight end plenty. And if you listen to Aaron Glenn and Frank Reich talk about this pick after the draft, they clearly are viewing him as an offensive weapon. So he brings a ton of upside. I do think that it makes it a little bit messier. They went out and got Cooper later in the draft, but I think they made their at least starting point and starting inclination clear, right? There were some heavy hitting wide receivers still on the board when they made this selection, and they opted to go Sadiq, right? So I think he comes in with the inside track to be, one of the primary options in this offense. And as long as he doesn't leave his quarterback out there exposed too much, I think that'll come to fruition this season.
Yeah, it's tough with Mason Taylor still garnering that second round draft capital a year ago, and that's something we're going to have to deal with. But, obviously this regime saw something in Sadiq to use that, luxury pick, if you will, at that 116 to go out and get him. So I don't hate it, and especially the fact that, hey, we're going to have a legit signal caller coming in here as early as 2027 and making things happen. And Steve's already, kind of high on Geno Smith as well. So we'll see what can happen out there.
Yeah, not in real life. Fantasy.
You're high for fantasy. Yeah. Yep. So, all right, I'll keep it moving here, and I will throw it over to Steve for the 109, who goes to Believeland up on the shores of Lake Erie.
Yeah, this is where the draft falls apart for me. Like at this point, I don't know what it's a crapshoot. So I went Casey Concepcion. Oh yeah, this is a mess.
I think Casey's in this first tier still. Maybe not first tier, but like still there's like first tier of the cliff, if that makes sense.
Casey's the last stop on this line for me. After that,
we're firmly tumbling down for me. Like, I mean, Jill is up at the top of the hill looking as Jack has fallen. And yeah, so Casey Concepcion, he lands in Cleveland, which is awful. He lands with a new regime, which is fine, not exciting by any means. No one really wanted to go to Cleveland and coach, and they just drafted their 300th quarterback. So there's 18 of them on the roster. There's 30 of them on the practice squad, apparently. No one knows who's going to be throwing the ball. If it's Deshaun Watson, that's a problem. If it's Shedeur Sanders, there's a whole nother set of problems. But I do like the talent out of Casey Concepcion. I think he's a solid wide receiver too at the NFL level. I would be shocked if he ends up as a wide receiver one ever. Plus, I don't know. They still are talking up Jerry Jeudy, why? I mean, if you take two wide receivers, there's no way you're sitting there saying that your number one wide receiver is like crushing it. So a lot of weird coach speak going on in Cleveland, which is why I think this is the point where the draft kind of falls apart.
I'll say the intriguing thing to me about Casey Concepcion is to me, he profiles very much in this Todd Monken offense. He's like the Zay Flowers, right? Where you can kind of play inside, you can play outside. Boston will, I would think be that X. Maybe we move Jerry Jeudy somewhat in the slot, but like, I think right now, like the interesting thing is like you look at Zay Flowers' stats as a rookie. That was Todd Monken's first year as the Ravens OC in 2023. 77 receptions, 850 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like I think that's kind of the range of what I'm seeing maybe for Casey Concepcion this year. So maybe there's
a big distinction that needs to be made before we,
quarterback.
Sure. Lamar Jackson ain't walking through that door.
Yeah, right. No, and that's fair. That's definitely fair.
At least not till next year.
Yeah, right. And then we could even maybe get a better passer than Lamar Jackson. But I think the thing about KC, which maybe you're feeling, Steve, is like it feels like the ceiling is kind of Zay Flowers-esque, if that makes sense. Like it never feels like he will be a top 12 fantasy wide receiver, but he can be a rock solid wide receiver too. So I like that pick there. But honestly, in my rankings, like a guy who I got much higher than this, it's Eli Stowers, tight end for the Eagles, man. And like, this has been another guy I've taken a lot of shrapnel. He was my tight end 1 for fantasy from the jump. Like, I knew Sadiq was going to get eventually after the combine, especially after setting the record there in the 40, that he was going to get the tight end 1 draft slot. But Eli Stowers here, like, Dallas Goedert's gone after this year. He's on a 1-year deal. Sean Mannion, I talked about earlier, loves those 2 tight end sets as well. And like, for me, I think this is just a great landing spot for 2025. John Mackey, award winner, who finished 6 in receptions, 62, had over 750 yards, 4 touchdowns, working with Diego Pavia, like not a crazy quarterback by any means, as the NFL draft told us. And like, these looks, like, what gets me excited, he can line up out wide. He can line up in the backfield. You know, some argue whether he can line up in line or not, but I think he's got a great guy to learn under in Dallas Goedert. And like Tyler Warren, you know, super high IQ guy, former 4-star quarterback recruit out of the state of Texas, but he has that production, dude, just at the next level, which I love. He was great in the combine, set records in the vert and the broad, 9.46 RAS. So yeah, I'm all in on Stowers, honestly. Like, I think for my fiance's Christmas gift, I'm already going to get her an Eli Stowers jersey. I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. So, you know, just for the bit and to keep it rolling. So Eli Stowers here at the 110. Steve, over to, or Eric, back to you for the 111, where we have another running back coming off the board.
We do have another running back going off the board. And before I go into one of my favorite picks to make at this point in the draft, we got to know, is that Stowers jersey that you're buying for your fiance? Is it actually low key in your size? Because when she doesn't want it, you're just popping that thing on, and now you're rocking the kid yourself.
That's very quickly trying to like go from married to divorced by getting his wife an Eli Stowers jersey for Christmas.
She likes Eagles jerseys. I buy her Eagles jerseys every couple years for Christmas.
She can appreciate top tier play, right? She's got a key eye
exactly.
for this sort
but
of thing.
like,
what if he's a bust?
Oh,
you gotta have a backup.
She already has a Kelsey jersey. She has a Saquon jersey. She has a Hurts jersey. Like, she's got Josh Allen. She's got enough jersey that she barely wears. So it's like, you know, but so she'll be fine if he
Seth
doesn't
buying this
out.
gift for himself. Love it.
Well, I'm already working on the Heidenreich and Drew Aller jerseys for myself. So I can't, you know,
can't fault you. My selection at 111, I think is a bit of a reach relative to where he's going on consensus boards, but Jonah Coleman, the early-ish selection for the Denver Broncos. Those of you that tuned in to last week's program already heard me rail about this young man and how much I love the opportunity he steps into, arguably maybe next to Price specifically, really the biggest riser based on his landing spot coming out of this year's draft class. He steps in and immediately shuts the door on really any long-term hope or immediate-term hope for RJ Harvey, who now has a guy that is 3 years younger than him in the backfield 1 year after he was drafted, and after the Broncos made it abundantly clear that he could not do what they needed him to do when he had the opportunity afforded to him last year. So they go in, they bring back J.K. Dobbins, who is actually kind of a squint your eye comp for Jonah Coleman. I think Jonah's got a little bit more pop. He's certainly more capable as a pass protector and as a receiver. But if Dobbins goes down, I think that plays more into Coleman's hands than it does to Harvey's when they are in passing down scenarios and they're potentially playing catch up or in hurry up. I think we're going to see more Coleman on the field than anybody else. So he should have some immediate value as a third down and hurry up back. And he should have the absolute straight line to a significant workload should historically when something happens to Dobbins. So Jonah Coleman is one of my favorite targets at the end of the first round.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. He's definitely my rock solid RB3. He was my RB2 coming into the process here. And like the thing about Jonah Coleman, like I've always, it's funny you kind of comp him a little bit loosely like Dobbins, because to me he's like Ray Rice, right? Like another former Raven. And
hopefully with a better temper.
Yeah, hopefully.
If I had to plant a flag on a comp, I see more Maurice Jones-Drew than anyone else, but built similarly to take that between the tackles bruising that they use Dobbins for.
Yeah, so but I really like it, and I think it is a little bit of an indication that they weren't extremely happy with what RJ Harvey was doing down the stretch, and this is really a team that they want to win with defense and good run game, right? And that's something they're going to need, especially here as Bo Nix continues to recover from that nasty injury late in the season. So 111. Is it a little early for me? Yeah, I have a couple players ranked above him still, Eric, but 201, I'm smashing Jonah Coleman every time if I can't trade out. So like that pick there nonetheless. And Steve, you're coming up with the 112 with maybe another guy that I thought maybe we could call a reach, but I'm looking around consensus and you're not high, that much higher than it. And we've been higher than consensus on this player all off season long. So why stop now, right?
Well, I think I've single-handedly, through all my rookie drafts, driven his ADP up by myself. Like, I am raising this man to a first-round draft grade because Antonio Williams is like the guy that I targeted in this draft. Of every wide receiver, he's the one that I saw the most upside for, that I was like, maybe he never gets to it, but I'm like, if someone's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown that comes out of left field and suddenly is like, oh my God, this dude's unstoppable, I thought it was Antonio Williams, and we kind of got deprived of Antonio Williams this season with injuries, kind of holding him back. And then Cade Klubnik forgot how to play quarterback, and Dabo Sweeney, I don't know, is 150 years old, I guess, and he was shaking his fist at children on his lawn most of the year. So, I mean, I've watched this guy for a few years, being a Florida State fan. I'm an ACC guy. I like Antonio Williams. I like his route running. He's quick, but he's fast enough to break the big plays. But he's really more of that short speed that like get out of cuts quick, sharp route runner, really good technician. And that's, anyone who watches the show regularly knows, like, my biggest thing is always, how are they as a route runner? How are they as a route runner? And Antonio Williams, I mean, if I was grading the wide receivers in this class, it would be my number one route runner in the class.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a very intriguing pick, man. Antonio Williams, someone who broke out as a true freshman, even with Cade Klubnik's struggles down the stretch of this season, and really from the jump, right? He still had a 125.4 quarterback rating when targeting Antonio Williams. So there's a lot of upside here. This is someone I also think can play outside. He wasn't as good when they played him outside as he was as a slot merchant, but I think they can move him around. And I think he's going to take over that Deebo Samuel role that we saw Samuel, the steady veteran, play a year ago. Different offense, different approach here with Cliff out of town, but you're still connecting him to a really good quarterback and Jane Daniels. And the thing that spoke to me highly about this pick with Antonio Williams, I think this was their second pick. Like, they didn't have a lot of draft capital to mess around with Washington. They prioritized going out and getting this man from Clemson, South Carolina. At the 201, though, and I have Antonio Williams. He's like my 2-2 right now. And I think we're getting a little disrespectful on Omar Cooper Jr., boys. Like, this is a guy, first-round draft capital by a team that has no wide receiver. I said it a couple weeks ago. I don't remember if it was this show or FB, but like this is the receiving core right now. You got Garrett Wilson, of course. You got Cooper now. You got A.D. Mitchell. You have that behind them, Arian Smith, Irvin Charles, Isaiah Williams, Mac DeLana, Quentin Skinner, Jamal Pritchard. That's where we're at right now, right? So, I mean, this is a guy who really was a deep ball specialist, right? A couple years ago, Curtis Rourke in tow, 28 receptions that season, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. Then links back up with Fernando Mendoza this past season, grabbed 61 balls, over 800 yards, 12 touchdowns, third in the country. And like, he was a weapon down the stretch, man. And like, I still don't think he's that much better than Elijah Surratt, but he's going to a way better situation, potentially better quarterback play coming in as early as 2027. Might not be a big, shifter and shaker for you in year one, but a guy who went out in the Natty, was really controlling of a really good secondary. So I'm going to go ahead and invest in Omar Cooper Jr. What was it, guys? Was there anything in particular, Eric, that made you want to go Coleman over Cooper? Or is it just like you do have those same question marks that he might not be that much better than Surratt?
Yeah, I mean, look, there comes a point in every rookie draft where you just gotta, go get your guy. And for me, a lot of that has to do with chasing upside in the 2026 rookie drafts. That is far earlier than it has been in any draft in recent memory, right? So, usually for me, guys that either on merit or through attrition have the path to being the number one in their offense, like Jonah Coleman, is something I consider as a tiebreaker. And Omar Cooper, while the wide receiver room is a little bit lackluster, I'm not entirely convinced he's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets in year number 1. And if A.D. Mitchell continues his trend from his Jets tenure last year, might be in a dogfight to make his way there in year 2. And we're looking at a world where they're going to be funneling targets to Sadiq. They're still going to be funneling targets to Breece Hall. Like, I like Cooper as a prospect, but the downside for him is like there's parts of his profile that have shades of like the sacrificial X, and where he landed, I think at least that likelihood becomes slightly higher, right? So it's just, there's a few more questions there, but I loved him as a prospect, right? Like if he fell into a situation that just wasn't as muddy, I would totally be comfortable with him in the first round.
Okay. 202, we are going right back to Eric with that pick.
So as I mentioned, I like to plant my flag on guys that I think have the inside track to some pretty epic upside, and that's Nicholas Singleton in this case. 202 is probably earlier than you'll see his name coming off the board in most places, but you look at who's standing in his way in front of him in that running back room for Tennessee. It is very crusty Tony Pollard and a Tajay Spears who has never answered the call when given expanded opportunity, right? So I think the runway is there. And then Nicholas Singleton, much like McCoy on the defensive side of the ball, he is the poster boy of a tale of two seasons when you're out there watching the tape. That 2024 season with Nicholas Singleton, he has the upside to where he could be in the conversation for the first running back off the board this year had he repeated it in 2025. Fortunately, he did not, right? There were some injury issues. There were some lingering recovery issues that potentially hampered him. Maybe he just lost a step over the course of a year and couldn't break away from guys. But the good, which we saw over the course of an entire season, is elite, right? And so at this point, instead of taking a shot on a guy who might get lucky and be the wide receiver 3 for, one of the bottom 5 offenses in the NFL, I'm going to go for a guy that, as soon as this year could step into, mid-tier RB2 type of production if things break his way. And that's the type of gamble that I'm looking to make now that, the high end prospects have all been picked off the board.
I've been talking about Singleton for a couple of years now in this particular program. And, you love the athleticism. You hate the vision at times, but you also love the landing spot again, because it's a team. Tajay Spears is going to be up after this year. Tony Pollard's going to be up after this year. So he could firmly have himself a backfield that him and Cam Ward run for the foreseeable future. At the 202, I think it's a great deal. I got him actually, guys, in my home league at I think the 208, and it's a lot of Penn State fans in there. And a guy who's just as much, if not a bigger Penn State fan than me, traded up at the 207. I'm like, oh, this is where I get sniped for Singleton. They trade up and they took Drew Allen. I was like, baby, let's go. Let's go.
Wow.
When homerism goes too far.
I know. I even see Penn State, and I'm like, no. And then, so we're ripping. Steve, speaking of ripping, get us moving in that direction with the 203, please.
Yeah, I went with Denzel Boston. It feels like the proper approach to this Cleveland wide receiver room is to throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see which noodle sticks.
Good spaghetti, though. Good spaghetti, Denzel Boston.
It's fine. It's like a solid spaghetti. I wouldn't say like, write home about it, but it's good. Denzel Boston, not a great route runner, big body, able to make contested catches. Kind of like a, I don't know, Temu version of Drake London, which isn't my favorite thing in the world, but like it's not bad. Ends up in a situation again, just like Concepcion, it's Cleveland. So odds are it'll be a mess, and that will just be a lost pick. But you got to take the shot where you get it. There wasn't anyone around there that I felt great about taking over him, so it was kind of like a war of attrition with Denzel Boston.
I think you're in a good spot here, honestly. I think you're downplaying him a little bit too, because to me, like, this is a guy who put up over 1,700 yards, 20 touchdowns in the Big Ten the past 2 seasons, dude. And like his quarterbacks, Will Rogers, who was overrated veteran garbage quarterback, and like a work in progress to say the least with Damon Williams, right? So like to me, like that speaks very highly that like this is a guy who carried this offense at times, man. You especially against some of these like Big Ten opponents with legit defenses, the Oregons, the Ohio States, the 2024 Penn States of the world, right? So I'm in here. Like it definitely feels a little gross because again, we don't know the quarterback situation for 2027. You've got Casey Concepcion, who feels like he's going to be the higher target earner, but you also have Jerry Jeudy likely exiting in a couple of years, Cedric Tillman likely not to be extended. So it feels like it's really going to be Harold Fannin Jr., Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion leading this offense for the foreseeable future. So you like that with Quinshon Judkins in the backfield. You can do a lot worse. So Denzel Boston off the board for Steve at the 203. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and like, honestly, like I'm kind of regretting. This was like a little bit. I had a quick trigger on this, honestly, going to Dejon Stribling here at the 204 because like he essentially was a first round pick, right? So it's like hard to really spit on him too much, but it's not like, again, I felt like the 49ers we talked about last week felt a little drunk doing this, right? This was definitely a reach by all means. A guy who played 5 years of college ball across Mizzou, Oklahoma State, and then Ole Miss this past season, and like. Really down the stretch, though, he was a weapon for Trinidad Chambliss in that playoff run. Finished with 55 receptions, over 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. So, like, he's fine. Like, I think he's a good athlete, right? Like, I wasn't expecting him to come in at 6'2", 207, actually 7 pounds heavier than his playing weight, but he ran that 4.36 40-yard dash. And I think the 49ers double counted speed a little bit here, right? But, 9.9 RAS, 5th in the class, 41st all time. Like, I think this guy he'll be the Z probably with what they spent on him right away. I think you put Ricky Pearsall in the slot. You got Mike Evans at the X. And again, this 49ers offense is so devoid of stability from injuries with everything that's going on with Kittle. McCaffrey been banged up times. Mike Evans coming off the most missed games of his career. Ricky Sticky never been able to stay on the field. So for me, like there's a world where Stribling comes in and plays that Jawan Jennings role from the start. So I'll go ahead and take him at the 204 and send it back over to Eric with the 205.
The beat goes on looking for guys that have tremendous upside, but maybe have some hot and cold streaks in their tape and in their playing history. Going with Chris Bell here, the wide receiver off the board for a Miami Dolphins passing game that sent everybody out of town over the course of the offseason, right? So if nothing else, we're looking at ample opportunity from a volume standpoint for Chris Bell here, who, while he, there are plenty of replacement level plus kind of guys in Miami still, none of them have a profile that matches Bell, right? 6'2", 220 pounds, 4'4", 40, right? Like he checks all of the boxes that you're looking for your prototypical outside ball winning type of X receiver. If you look at the way that Louisville used him, there are open questions as to whether or not he's, limited on some of his, interior routes and inward breaking routes, or if that's just, limitations of their offense. But if nothing else, if Chris Bell hits, his upside is tremendous, right? The Nico Collins, AJ Brown kind of archetype, right? The downside is maybe you're getting Xavier Legette, which, isn't bad for a few years until they bring in some competition and is certainly worth the price of admission for paying a middle second round pick in this year's draft class.
Okay. The 205 to Eric and Chris Bell, and then 206 to Steve, where we have QB3 off the board.
Yeah. I just went with someone who had an opportunity. I think Jacoby Brissett very easily could play himself into the bench, or if the Cardinals just start losing out.
Well, 0-10 last year, it wasn't good. It was good. It wasn't bad statistically for fantasy, but he didn't win games.
Right. And so if you draft this, if you've drafted a rookie quarterback, why wouldn't you try to see what you got? And there's 1,000 offensive weapons out there in Arizona. There's a plethora of talent for him to go out and maybe succeed. And at the 206, not a lot of QBs that have a chance to play this year and succeed this year and get you over the hump. So Carson Beck feels like a real strong pick here. Probably the one that I'm most excited about overall, in terms of just the value versus the pick that I got this year. I know Carson Beck has plenty of detractors and reasons not to like him.
Yeah.
But situation, and he's a winner. He's won in college. He's put up big numbers. I think he could do okay, at least Jacoby Brissett level in Arizona.
Yeah, I honestly I don't I kind of was turned off on Carson Beck as the prospect the last 2 years, and he had a good showing at Miami here late, but I really think that a lot of that was how can we get the ball in Malachi Tony's hand? How can we get Mark Fletcher running downhill? A lot of that too, but the thing I like about this pick, Steve, is you're going to know after this year, whether I can drop Carson Beck or not, pretty much. That's how I feel, at least, because you're going to know if Arizona is going to go back to the well in 2027 for a quarterback or if this is their guy. And the interesting thing about it is when did Carson Beck succeed at Georgia? Well, it was with Brock Bowers. What's he have here in Arizona? Oh yeah, he's got not only Marvin Harrison Jr., but he also has Mike Wilson coming off a 1,000-yard season. He's got Jeremiyah Love in the backfield. And then, oh yeah, we got the best tight end in the league there as well. So I think with all that opportunity in front of him, like he has the chance to succeed. And he has the chance to succeed right away with Trey McBride right working with him. So I can't blame you for the shot here on Carson Beck. For me at the 207, I'm going to go with Germie Bernard, new Pittsburgh Steelers, likely slot wide receivers, what we're going to see for Bernard. And I'll be honest, like Bernard is not my favorite prospect. He really isn't. Like, I think the guy does not have the softest hands at times. I don't love him in 50-50 situations. He is an above average route runner, which you like. But this is another guy who, like, he was kind of came onto the scene during that Ryan Grubb Washington national championship run, right? With Kalen DeBoer. Then he, follows DeBoer down to Tuscaloosa. And like, I will say, like, good numbers the past 2 years, 1,750 yards, 12 total touchdowns, 114 receptions. It actually outproduced Ryan Williams this past year with Isaiah Horton also on the roster. So like he had, worked pretty well, whether it was catching passes from Milroe or Ty Simpson. He was really the go-to guy, not the most athletic one in the world, but felt very dependable when Ty Simpson needed a look on third, on fourth down. Remember that Iron Bowl game against Auburn in particularly. He was looking Bernard's way a lot when they were trailing in that one. So yeah, I'm going to go with Bernard here. Again, I don't know if there's a ton of upside. I don't know how good Michael Pittman's back though is for the future. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with a guy, Big Mike McCarthy, felt strong enough to go and get Omar Khan, the con artist, to trade up. And Eric, you're up at the 208 with a man that's still special in my heart, even though he is now playing for my bitter division rival.
Yeah, after taking a second to process my emotions from getting sniped with your prior pick, decided to see things clearly and welcome Elijah Surratt at the 208. This one feels a little uncomfortable because the Ravens, who have been for as long as any of us can remember trying to figure out their perimeter receiver role, went out and did it in the draft. And they did it twice, and they did it with two players, one of which that was actually drafted ahead of Elijah Surratt. But I had Elijah Surratt as the better prospect coming into the process. I'm going to trust that evaluation and take him here at the 208. Clearly the Ravens have a need, and they're going to try to figure this out, right? The thing that gives the edge to Surratt over Lane for me is he so clearly understands his role in a passing game, right? He's not a burner. He's not shaking anyone off the line of scrimmage, right? He's not, pulling away from anyone with super refined, subtle movements, right? Like, he's a big body. He's a bruiser. He's going to win contested catches. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if we see him really step into, I'll say the Isaiah Likely role, but with Mark Andrews' age, really the way that the Ravens have been using tight ends over recent
red zone
years.
Guy. Yeah.
He is going to be their red zone guy for my money. It wouldn't be surprising at all if we see a lot of deep shot chunk plays to Jacoby Lane where he gets tackled the moment that he catches the ball, and that happens to be in the red zone. And now we're looking at Elijah Surratt going up and plucking a 50-50 ball for a touchdown, right? So I'll go with the guy who I think has a little bit more consistent touchdown equity as opposed to the guys a little bit more boom bust in their other draftee for this exposition.
Yeah, I'm with it. I don't love the landing spot. I don't love that the pie is the size it is. Maybe that changed a little bit here under Monken, but with Monken out the door, but you still wouldn't, really expect it to be a high volume passing offense. But someone I think is good enough to challenge in a year or two from now, Zay Flowers, for that, lead pass catching target earning position on this particular roster. I think he's a different player than what the role Flowers is going to. He can play inside, he can play outside, do a little bit of everything I think the Ravens need. So a prospect I still love, definitely too high on him coming into the prospect, given he was a 0-star recruit, not the most athletic guy in the world, but I think he's a quarterback's best friend. I think he's ready to play now with the run blocking he'll possess. Steve, you're coming up next with a player that the New York Giants certainly like because they gave up a load to go get him.
Yeah, and sometimes when people talk, you have to listen. Every so often, we love to talk here, right? But it's a good idea for us to listen as well. When a team makes this big of a move that they dump a bunch of draft capital to go get a guy, it means that they're seeing something in him and they want to feature him early. And that means Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame going to the New York Giants is a great pick here at the 209. You get him for a steal, I think, where Jackson Dart is much in that Cam Ward style of like, hey, listen, I'm slinging it. Like, I'm going to, double covered, single covered, triple covered, doesn't really matter. If the ball is supposed to go there, that's where I'm going to get it there. And Malachi Fields is a big body. He's really athletic. I know his 40 time didn't impress by any means. But there's more to athleticism than just straight line. How well can you run a track style get off? And I think that Fields will have a better pro career than he had a college career, which is, great for his dynasty value. I think after training camp, if you're one of those like August dynasty drafts, I don't think you're going to get Malachi Fields this cheap.
Okay. Yeah. To me, Fields feels like Taco Bell after midnight. Like you're gambling a little bit, right? But it could be awesome, but you could wake up on the shitter the next morning and have no idea, right? So you like what he did at Virginia, right? Top 10 in the conference in receiving yards 2 straight seasons before going to South Bend. And it wasn't like he had crazy quarterback play. Like CJ Carr could be a first round pick next year, could come back for another season, but he was a freshman, right? First year taking action and went over 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, and, looked solid, man. So I don't have an issue with it. It's just to me, I don't usually like the prototypical X receivers that are not athletic. It feels a bit Matt Collins-y to me, but 6'4", 218 and just a 4.61 40. It's hard for me to wrap my arms around it, but I do like what you said in that, hey, Jackson Dart, if there's a guy who wants to throw some YOLO balls up there, it's JD right there. And also we know that the Giants really like him and they wanted to get him in the building. So I can't blame you too much for that. It's definitely in line with consensus there. At the 210, I'm going to go Chris Brazzell. And Brazzell, super interesting prospect too, I think, who I think people really want to label this guy a one-year wonder, but people kind of forget what he did at Tulane a couple years ago as well, as a redshirt freshman. So I think to me, when you come out of the combine looking as good as he did, 4.37 second 40 time, checked in at 6'4", 198, there is a lot to like with this guy, right? And it's he wasn't to me also the prototypical, Jalen Hyatt or Cedric Tillman. He was a little bit differently used at Tennessee this past year. So there's a lot to like. The biggest thing for me is I don't think he is awesome with his hands at times. I think he can be a little bit more of a chest catcher. But he's still very good fluid in the route running. And I think he's someone who didn't play against a ton of press coverage. So we'll need to see if he can get off that at the next level. And we need to keep this guy's head clean a little bit. From what I've heard off the field, a little bit of a knucklehead. So the concerns really for Brazzell not making it, it's, can he get off press coverage? He didn't have to do it a lot at Tennessee. They played a lot of drop coverage on him. And also, can you keep your head clean? But at the 210, I'm willing to roll a dice here a little bit with CB. And then I'm going to send it right back to Eric with the 211.
Man, we are walking through different seasons of this draft, because I would say all 3 of these guys that we have talked about here, as I add Ted Hurst to the list at the 211, have some similar warts to their game, right? Certainly plenty of upside in their profile, but things that are worrisome about how it translates over to the NFL level. I'll start there with Ted Hurst, right? For a guy of his size, right, 6'2", good amount of bulk on him, not as capable to get off of press coverage as you would like to see, not as capable at winning 50-50 balls as you would like to see, not as dependable as you'd like to see in terms of the number of balls that he let hit the turf overall. But his profile very much so fits into one that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are very much so in need to, as Mike Evans heads over to the power substation in San Francisco. Moreover, there are plenty of promising things about what we saw from him last year in particular, right? His forced missed tackle rate after he brought the ball down was one that took a significant jump forward. And because press was something that gave him a hard time getting his release off and into his route, when he was in motion, he looked very, very effective. And now he steps into a Tampa Bay circumstance that not only has the need for the Mike Evans role, but they welcome in Zach Robinson into town as their offensive coordinator. And he is the OC, or the play caller, that actually led the NFL in motion rate. Over 60% of plays incorporated motion when he was on the sticks for Atlanta. So certainly not a perfect prospect coming in Ted Hurst, but if you had to hand pick a circumstance for him to fall into, one that needs his role and that is going to put him in motion a lot, is probably about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, Feldman Freaklister, 9.92 RAS at the combine, right? 4th best in the class, 33rd best all time. You like that, all Sun Belt. And really a guy, Georgia State, I'm the biggest G5 stan in the world, not in the world, but definitely one of the bigger ones I think out there on the internet. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Definitely on the Rushmore for sure. And like Georgia State's a team I didn't watch a lot of. And if I did, I was betting some big numbers against them. But like the Panthers cycled through 5 quarterbacks in 2 years, and like Ted Hurst was still able to put up these types of numbers. So I'm completely cool with it. Nearly 2,000 yards, 15 tutties over the past 2 seasons. Ted Hurst goes off the board there at the 211 to Eric. And 212 now is a man in Emmett Johnson. Kind of gives me like that Leroy Jenkins vibe. Steve, if you remember that YouTube video, Steve? Were you on that part of the internet then?
I did. I remember it. I don't know why.
I don't know, kind of brought it up, I don't know.
And Seth's he's got a soft spot for like obscure early 2010s internet culture references.
Big Vine kid. Seth was a big Vine kid. He was
raised by Vine.
I was actually I actually didn't have a phone then, so I wasn't really on Vine, but like I'd watch them on YouTube and I thought they were funny. I also, you guys remember the guy who used to like with the OG cinnamon challenge guy? Who was that guy on YouTube? What was his name?
I don't know. I didn't really get into this.
I'll have to get a okay. So you weren't on that part of the internet, but you're definitely on the Leroy Jenkins part of it. Go ahead with Emmett Johnson. Sorry.
I guess so. So Emmett Johnson is still my RB3 in this class, where I've read recently that the Chiefs are insanely high on Emmett Johnson. It seems like a guy that they wanted to go out and get regardless of what was going on. Seemed like they could wait on him, so they did wait on him. Not so much we'll take him because he's there, but more like, all right, we know kind of the lay of the land and we're going to wait. This is a guy who profiles to me as I know Kenneth Walker is there, but that doesn't mean that Emmett Johnson can't get on the field. There's very much a world where this is a 2 running back like deal. It's a dual-headed committee where they're trying to keep pressure off of Mahomes. Mahomes is aging like a banana. In the NFL. Like he's getting significantly worse year over year, and it's starting to become alarming. So the best thing that the Chiefs can do is go and keep running the ball better and better and better. They brought in Eric Bieniemy to do that because he's an excellent run game coordinator and an offensive coordinator, as we saw in the NFL. Emmett Johnson profiles to me very much like Jonathan Stewart to Kenneth Walker's D'Angelo Williams, if that makes sense. And I think we could see a similar kind of split where, yes, Kenneth Walker is getting the lion's share of it. But if we see 25, 30 carries a game, say we see 30 carries in a game, maybe 18 of them go to Kenneth Walker, but I think 12 could go to Emmett Johnson. And I think Johnson profiles as a better red zone back, goal line back, touchdown kind of guy. He also has good hands. He's able to catch the ball. He's able to do everything that Kenneth Walker can do, and maybe even catch the ball a little bit better than Kenneth Walker. There is a clear path forward for Emmett Johnson. Don't let the draft capital get you down. This was a very strange draft where you had a bunch of third-string tight ends going in the second round. They basically threw the second round out for some reason this year. So don't overreact. Emmett Johnson, I think, is going to be a player that will be on your dynasty team for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
It's interesting because I do like Emmett Johnson as a prospect. I do like the landing spot. I think he'll win that backup job over Brashard Smith, a 7th round pick out of SMU a year ago. However, they did go out. They grabbed some undrafted free agents, Jaden Ott, EJ Smith, Terrion Arnold as well, I believe. So like they've kind of been loading up here in Chiefs Kingdom. So I'm just hoping one of those guys doesn't get like the Isaiah Pacheco treatment and jump him. That'd be the only thing I would worry about. But at the 212, it's hard to complain about the value there of a potential RB2 in Chiefs Kingdom that is in that Zach Charbonnet-esque role, if that's what they decide to do with Kenneth Walker. And a real quick reminder before we get into a little rapid fire 3rd round action, don't forget that you can always connect with us after the fact. Come let us know who won this mock draft, who lost this mock draft, what were your favorite picks, least favorite picks. Let us know if you're on the clock, if you have any questions, if you got any trade requests. We want to talk those through with you in the IBT football family. That's our exclusive community where you can get access to chat with our analysts and our viewers and entry into our memorabilia giveaways for no cost whatsoever. And if you want to get access to our full betting cards, touchdown call contest, you can upgrade right now for $3.99 per month or $36 for the year. And that's also going to get you into all the benefits of the racing, golf, and entertainment family we have going on over here at IBT as well, where we are making plays. We are giving out betting models. We are giving out projections for a lot of various things. We also have interactive games and tournaments you can join, like the touchdown call contest, the NFL playoff contest, the PGA one and done tournament, the NASCAR head-to-head tournament, and the Survivor 50 fantasy league as well. We'll have all our events in there as well. Draft night out and the IBT Classic happening this year at the Fantasy Football Expo. So a lot of stuff happening right there at in-betweenmedia.com/chat, or link is in the episode description. Thank you very much for checking that out. We'd really appreciate that. Boys, I'm back on the clock, and I'm going with a man that has a piece of my heart, just like the state of Connecticut does. I went up to Connecticut a couple of years ago. Really enjoyed it. Really, I think Connecticut, expensive state, but like one of the like, would you guys agree, one of like the treasures of the U.S., Connecticut?
The treasures of the U.S.? No.
Yo,
No one talks about Connecticut. I think it's a pretty good state.
Connecticut's lovely.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I Mystic.
treasure,
You been to
though.
Mystic, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, remember, I live in New England, so
That's what
like
I'm saying. Have you been to Mystic? Like, that's pretty cool, man. They got Mystic, you know.
that's not that cool. That's the problem. is
What?
that,
New
like-
London, New London, Connecticut.
No, dude, I've been to
Good-
Connecticut plenty. Like the main reason that New Englanders go to Connecticut is so we can park and take the train into New York. That's what we
Correct.
use Connecticut for.
So it's like your parking lot, pretty much. is what
Yeah,
you're
pretty
saying?
much. It's
See that's why it needs some love. I had a good time.
it doesn't. It's
I
like the fifth best New England state, legitimately.
I would
Eric?
agree that Connecticut is long overdue for some love, but I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's like, I kind of get the sense, and this is not my neck of the woods, it's largely viewed as like the flyover state of New England.
It
right?
is. It is.
and that's why I think it needs some, like, honestly,
Yeah. I just don't know why you're
It
gassed
has
up about
way
it. I'd
too
love to hear the
gas
case.
is too expensive there. You always fill up before you get into Connecticut. Whichever direction you're coming,
Okay,
you gotta fill
good
up
to
before
know.
you get into
Good to
Connecticut.
know.
Like, really, you have Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine are all significantly better if you're in the New England area. Like, it's not a great state, man.
Yeah, I just had some really good vibes down there. I spent 4th of July there the one year. I think that was West Haven is where I was. Loved.
Yeah.
We walked around the Yale campus too, I believe is where that was.
There's
and-
nice parts. Don't get me wrong. It's just there's not a
Yeah.
lot to do in Connecticut.
Yeah. I also had like the best I'd say top 3 cheeseburger I've ever had. It was like a pickle bacon ranch cheeseburger along the shores of New London. Great stuff. And
Man, all
The
right.
qualifications that make a state like a treasure to you is so strange. Like,
come on.
Yeah,
man.
it's basically like I had a good time there once.
Yeah, I had
I'll
fun
split
on
the
4th of
difference
July.
and say Connecticut is appropriately rated.
Where would you rank it in
Seth-
your states? Fifth, like
it's definitely the top half, but that's because New England
Yeah,
is all in
like
the top half. We have the best.
21. I don't know.
okay.
Yeah,
But
like-
more so, I
probably-
love the fact that before the commercial, Seth's like, before we come back for this rapid fire third round, and he
Yeah,
just
I know.
stumps about Connecticut for
I know.
7 minutes.
I know. I'd probably rank it 9. I think it'd be my 9th favorite
Ooh,
state. Yeah,
okay.
top 9.
We got to
top
do
9.
a show on this. Like the three of us just need to come on. We're just going to start ranking states, like a draft.
I'm all
Like,
right
we'll
with
just
it.
have a mock
Give me
draft
like 2
of the
more
states.
years because I'm gonna
Please, in the
go see
off-season,
Massachusetts.
Give me an off-season state draft show.
Yeah. Give me till like, let's do that in August. I'm coming up to see you in Boston, Steve. And I'm gonna go to for our honeymoon. We're going up to the New England area, so I'll see a couple more of those states that I can.
Are
Maybe
you staying in Connecticut?
One night we are going back to
Okay.
Connecticut for one night. Yeah, one night. I need that burger again. So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I gotta stop there at least.
Go to the
once, so.
Cape, man. Don't bother.
Skyler Bell, though, a player who, I mean, Connecticut was this guy's home, right? I mean, was 3 years at Wisconsin, did absolutely
And
nothing.
look what it
for
did to him. Look at his picture.
Well, he's jacked, man, right? And comes back the past 2 seasons, 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. UConn's first ever consensus All-American, set programs records, man. Blintikoff finalist nod. And like, dude, it's an awesome freaking landing spot too, right? I mean, this is a Bills team that I think he can beat out Joshua Palmer for the Z. I really do. I think like a lot of people said, hey, he's going to sit behind Khalil Shakir and not play much because Shakir's only running out of the slot pretty much. I think he's either going to come in and play flanker, or maybe we move Shakir in and out of there. But I think Skyler Bell is honestly like already the 3rd best receiver on this team, connected to Josh Allen. Who knows how long DJ Moore there has there. They're going to need to re-up Khalil Shakir in a couple years too. So yeah, I'm blown away here. Little Sky Bell at the 301, and I'm sending to Eric at the 302, where the NFL draft will be landing.
Yeah, I'll try to do my best to adhere to the rapid fire construct. Kaytron Allen, specifically what I'm looking for at this point in my rookie draft, is a guy who's stepping into an opportunity that brings a non-duplicative skill set. And he walks into the Washington Commanders and offer something that nobody else in their running back room does, right? So that gives him a pretty good foot to stand on in terms of making the team, taking the field, right? Classic kind of between the tackles thumper, but doesn't exactly run the way that you might think, right? He's got a lot of heft behind him, right? He throws his weight around, but he's incredibly patient. He lets blocks develop. He's got really good vision. He gets the most of what's blocked for him. But leaves a little bit to be desired as a pass catcher, as a pass protector. He doesn't really have the breakaway speed, but he could be a guy that is getting a fair amount of early down work for Washington. He could be a guy that they lean on a little bit more in the red zone. But if nothing else, there are aspects of his game that are unique, and I think will really cement his role on this team pretty quickly.
You are up, Steven, with the 303.
Yeah, I went with the better of the two Baltimore Ravens rookies, and I went with Jacoby Lane. Listen, Elijah Surratt just doesn't do it for me. I don't know what the fascination is with Surratt. Like, he's just kind of like
produced at every level. He's awesome.
Fine. He was a 0-star recruit. Like, I don't know if he produced at every level. He's fine. He's whatever. But
pretty good at St. Francis. When he started out in St. Francis, maybe 45 minutes for me. He was pretty good down there too.
Yeah, but okay, so I'm just saying, what, in high school?
No. He started at St. Francis Community College, went from St. Francis. Maybe it's not community college, but it's a junior college, and then goes to JMU, and he was great there. And he was great. So he was great at all three levels.
He wasn't great. He was good, not great. Really? I don't think anyone would say he was great.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, all right, guys who could take the top off the defense. They prototypical X receiver. I just think it's a better opportunity. I like the prospect better. I really doubt Surratt is ever going to be able to get open at the NFL level. So he's really going to be relying on 50-50 balls that he's good at, but he's not elite at. It's just not his skill set. So Jacoby Lane just has a clearer path to being relevant, I guess, fantasy-wise. I don't love that he's in Baltimore, but you never know. Lamar Jackson is one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL in terms of passer rating. So when he does chuck it downfield, it usually gets completed, and Jacoby Lane could feast in this kind of perhaps Alec Piercy kind of role.
Okay. 304. I'm going to go with Zachariah Branch. I've heard a lot of people call him Zach Branch lately, and kind of like that, so I might steal that in a future episode. So give me a little Zach Branch here. This is a guy that, Devy circles have known about, CFF circles have known about for a long time. Consensus 5-star recruit, ranked as the number 1 recruit in that 2023 class. Had a pretty mixed bag, playing with Caleb Williams, Miller Moss, Jaden Maeva, USC. But then this past year, he showed that he's more than just an elite returner, right? This is someone who, and he was a little fraudulent, right? A lot of screens for sure. 4.35, 40 second 40 at the combine, had just as many, touchdowns and receptions and receiving yards as he did in his 2 years at USC that he did this year, 1 year down at Georgia working with Gunnar Stockton. So I think Zach Branch, he's someone he knows the building, right? This is, staying in Atlanta. So you love that, or the great state of Georgia at least. And this is another team. It's Drake London, it's Jahan Dotson, it's Olamide Zacchaeus, and then it's Casey Washington and Dylan Drummond. That's pretty much who's here at wide receiver. I think he immediately takes over that slot role. I think we push Jahan Dotson back to the Z, and maybe Zacchaeus. Well, maybe Zacchaeus will hold on to it. But worst case scenario, I think it's kind of like a Luther Burden situation where Burden eventually passed Zacchaeus, and maybe this happens with Branch. So I think they're a new regime in Atlanta. They really like this kid. They've seen him play a lot of ball in that particular stadium. So yeah, give me a little Zach Branch at the 304, and Eric at 305, please.
305, going with a certified athletic freak of nature. 99th percentile athleticism score, and really just about every potential measure that you can think of. 9.98 RAS score, the 7th highest among wide receivers since the year of our Lord, 1987, back when dinosaurs walked the earth. Everything about how this kid profiles as an athlete is the stuff that wide receiver dreams are made of. But unfortunately, he played at a small school for his college career. Fortunately, he's got several raw aspects about his ability to get off the line, about his route tree, right, about his ability to win contested catches. So, this is the classic trade-off of a guy that can step into a system with Kellen Moore, who, as we mentioned earlier, we have a lot of trust in his ability to maximize and develop wide receivers. If that pays off, you're playing with house money getting him at 305. Downside is he could actually just be very rough around the edges for the majority of his career, and then you burnt a taxi spot for a handful of years, right? So I think that's a worthwhile trade-off for me. Happy to get him at 305.
Steve, the 306 is?
Yeah, that's Mike Washington. Most disappointing landing spot of pretty much anyone in the draft. This was a big bummer. But explosive athlete, opportunities to maybe have a few home run hits this year. Obviously not going to be a starter because Ashton Genty's there unless things go real weird and Genty turns out to be a bust, which he doesn't look to be. But it is late and you kind of just have to take these Hail Mary shots. And Mike Washington is absolutely that. Again, freak athlete, clear second back, like has a path to touches regardless of Ashton Genty. Now, if Genty goes down, then all of a sudden, great. You got someone with a lot of talent getting the ball a lot. So I like Mike Washington here.
No bigger faller, unfortunately, than Mike Washington Jr. This was a guy who was going inside the top 13, top 14 of most rookie drafts, super flex formats. Prior to the draft, you do get stuck behind Genty here, but this is a team that we know, we know that Gary Kubiak, he likes to, or Clint Kubiak better yet, he likes to run that, two running back set. So we'll see what happens out there for him at the 307. Give me a little hometown boy. Yes, sir. It's Eli Heidenreich. And this is a guy, wide receiver, running back out of Navy. I think he's going to come in here. That was an awesome, I don't know if you guys were watching late into day 3 of the draft like I was, but that was an awesome experience. And he was in Pittsburgh. The whole crowd lit up. He goes out the terrible towel, gets his moment with the crowd. And it was just super, super cool. And for a guy who's from, the outskirts of Pittsburgh, right? And a guy who went to the Navy Academy, put his life on the line to do that, and never thought maybe this would ever happen for him. And don't get it twisted, man. Like Navy played in the American this past year, arguably the best G5 conference in the entire country, 51 receptions, 941 yards. That was over 55.7% of the passing yards. So if you like dominator rating as a stat, doesn't get talked about as much as it did a couple years ago, but dominator rating, like Eli Heidenreich is right up there with the best of them, man. He can use that wide in the slot, at fullback, at tight end, at running back. So for me, I think like they need a Kenny Gainwell type of guy, right? Gainwell's out of the building. They did bring in Rico Dowdle, but he's more of that thumper change of pace back. So I think maybe Heidenreich could play a role as early as this season. And if not, who knows what happens after that. But I think he's a really interesting prospect. Caleb Johnson, so long, my friend. Talk about losers from the draft, a guy you didn't think would be impacted by a 7th rounder, but Heidenreich is just that guy. So fire him up for the Lurs here. Eric, back to you with a 308.
Yeah, sticking to my type, athletic freak of nature this time at the quarterback position, Taylen Green. I'm honestly scratching my head as to why a player of his caliber is available at the 308. Maybe everyone just feels snake bit from Anthony Richardson a handful of years ago. But had he been drafted to a team that had an active and immediate opening at their quarterback position, I think that Taylen Green would have been drafted and traded in a pretty similar way to Anthony Richardson, right? He profiles almost step for step with him from an athletic standpoint. Even the areas of strength, right, just can absolutely uncork it and is deadly accurate in the deep ball. He also is step for step with him on some of the warts in his profile, inconsistent, slowing motion, limited experience, right? But like he's drafted to a Browns team that if everyone and their mother wasn't convinced was going to be in the quarterback market next year, would be one of the ideal landing spots. There's no legitimate competition on merit that should keep them from at least seeing what the kid has. And the thing that gives me at least slightly more hope that this is a dart worth throwing here in the middle part of the 3rd round is if you look at his Boise State tape and then fast forward to what he put on film last year, he did show some improvement in several key areas. His throwing motion got a little bit tighter. His feet got a little bit better. He showed a little bit more poise in the pocket, right? So like, he's on an arc to where if he gets to the NFL level and continues to take incremental step forwards and they really find a way to bottle up that athleticism and tap into it. I mean, there's just a ton of upside here considering that he's fighting off the likes of Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. So he could potentially take the field this year if things go well for him. He could be the steal of the draft, but it's got its downside too, as Richardson also taught us.
Yes, he certainly does. We'll see what happens up there along the shores of Lake Erie. Steve, you're bringing it back to the great city of Bridges.
Yeah, and I'm drafting the kid from Adolescence. Drew Aller he just looks just like Owen Cooper. It's like a grown-up version of him. It's so weird. But Pittsburgh Steelers have a kind of a black hole at quarterback right now. There's no answer. Aaron Rodgers is off in the desert, probably taking some sort of mind-altering substance right now and pretending that he's still married or ever has been married to this fictional wife. That
he's only taking shots at his wife. Come on, he doesn't like that.
What wife?
What are you talking about? I don't know.
This woman's never been seen. Not once.
She's real.
She's not real.
Just private.
Yeah, okay. How private? Come on now. But Drew Aller, big arm, someone we talked about as a potential first-round pick as early as this, like a year ago.
Yeah.
Like coming into the season, we thought Drew Aller, he's going to be competing for that number one pick spot. And then the wheels came off Penn State, winds up with James Franklin getting fired. And nothing went right. It was a really just odd season overall. But I think the pieces are there for Drew Aller to maybe put it back together and figure it out. And if he gets out there and shows, hey, listen, I'm still that dude that y'all thought I was, this could be the Steelers' answer long-term at quarterback. There's not a great chance of it happening, but if it did happen, I wouldn't be stunned. I like Drew Aller. I like the big arm ability. I like the, he's not an athletic freak by any means, but he's mobile enough.
And he's 6'5", 230, right? And
he's sneaky athletic though. He's kind of like Jameis Winston-esque, where it's you don't want him pulling the ball down and running, but when he does, it looks awkward, but it gets it done. So I'm kind of in on Drew Aller right now.
I've said it, man. I think Will Howard is a 5% chance of hitting. I think Drew Aller is a 5% chance of hitting, but put them together, you got 10%. So I'm okay with the pick much more than most Steeler Nation is. Of course, living right here near State College, I'm a little bit biased, but you can't teach that type of stuff. You can't teach the cannon, you can't teach the size. We can teach him maybe how to process, right? And how to make better decisions, because that's something Drew Aller, and get through his progressions better, because it's something he struggles with. But I would love it, honestly, if Aaron Rodgers came back and Drew got to learn from someone like him, from what he can do on the football field. So totally cool with that. 310, I'm going to go with Brenen Thompson. I have Fernando Mendoza on the graphic, not Fernando Mendoza, but we're just going to roll with it here either way. B. Tom here, the man that I should have put Mike McDaniel on the cover here, because he was the guy who threatened to take his shirt off if they went and got Brenen Thompson. So there's going to be a ton of jet sweeps here. There's going to be a ton of touch passes for Brenen Thompson, because Mike McDaniel loves speed. He's like the guy, Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious, right? Got that need for speed, right? So I think, man, you get Thompson, who was primarily used as a gadget player and a returner early across Texas and Oklahoma, goes and plays that Kevin Coleman role at Mississippi State this past season, leads the SEC in receiving yards with over 1,057 receptions. It's really fun to see what they can maybe do with him. It's an absolute dart throw. It could be absolutely nothing, but QJ's contract's up after this season, so we shall see what happens. And Brenen Thompson could be coming into a pretty fun situation there. Eric, you are back on with the 311.
Yeah, prospecting in the handcuff waters now, right? Kaelon Black with the 311 pick. The next alleged heir apparent to Christian McCaffrey coming into San Francisco. I think the thing that maybe gives a little bit more stock to that claim is we've been doing this for years now, and Christian McCaffrey has been getting older every single year. He's going to be turning 30 ahead of this year's season. So at some point, there is decent potential for that fall off. He's not exactly perfectly clean from an injury history standpoint, right? So really just taking shots at a guy that should CMC, start to deteriorate from a production standpoint or suffer another injury. Kaelon Black should step into a pretty significant role, even in absence of that. I don't think he'll be an entire zero from a contribution standpoint. He'll step into that Brian Robinson role. He has a nice complementary skill set to what Christian McCaffrey brings to them. A little bit older of a prospect, so not my favorite thing in the dynasty context. But the good thing is that he's got some experience under his belt, and he should be able to step in and play some of that between the tackles role. And If CMC happens to make a little way for him by one reason or another, you now have yourself a pretty interesting asset for at least a couple of years.
This was a crazy reach, like by Shanahan. Like we can't dodge that. Like this is a guy who was behind Justice Ellison, behind Tyson Lawton in 2024, comes back, but plays right next to Roman Hemby there in 2025. It's kind of that 1B back. And it couldn't have been Roman Hemby, right? Because I got a nice couple autographed cards of him. I've been saving, for when he got drafted, but he ultimately didn't, and it was Black instead. But regardless, I think of the shot here, the 311, it's not a bad play. We'll see if he's, the latest Kyle Shanahan day 2 miss at running back and wide receiver, but there's always a chance he does hit.
There.
Yeah, right. And Steve, speaking of day 2 and 3 swings, you got one coming from just your type of guy, a converted wide receiver to the running back position, my friend.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I actually wanted to do a converted quarterback to wide receiver here, but unfortunately, my guy Tommy Castellanos did not get signed as a wide receiver yet. So I will go with Adam Randall, the newest Baltimore Ravens running back. He's a big body guy, 6'3". So kind of in that similar mold to Derrick Henry, except for the fact that he was a wide receiver in college. So he's going to be probably their third down running back, but a very big third down running back compared to like most guys you think of as that change of pace guy.
Like Justice Hill.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big dude. I think he's got, some upside to come in. There's a kind of a void looking at the Ravens overall. Maybe they want to use him in that way. He's an ex wide receiver, so he's got the route running ability in the hands. It's the 312, right? I mean, at this point, I draft your grandfather for all I care at the 312. You're probably not hitting anyway. So take a dart throw.
Especially this year. The 312 feels a lot like the 412 or the 5.5 a couple years ago, right?
The 312 feels very much like, it's a free agent and I had an open spot.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Guys, great stuff tonight. Appreciate all your wonderful analysis and approach to this with me. Thank you all so much for watching as well. That is going to do it for us on this episode of the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast. If you've ridden along with us this long, first of all, again, thank you so much for that. And also, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the new IBT sub channel. Yes, it's the IBT Podcast. It's youtube.com/@IBT Podcast for all the NFL, fantasy football, and betting coverage you need for a successful season. You can also make sure you check out the entire IBT channel where we still have fantasy football, NFL betting coverage, college football betting, NASCAR betting, PGA betting, entertainment reviews, and betting, all to help you cash more and to enjoy the ride along the way. Be sure to also check out in-betweenmedia.com for some dope written content and join the community for free right now, in-betweenmedia.com/chat. For my friends, Steven Lawson and Big Tex, Eric Romoff, I'm Seth Wilcock. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep it in between.